Yo, what's up guys? Before we start the video, small tip. If you're using this Giants team with these 4 units over here, you can place any of the new Collab units or in general any unit over there. Just give it a triple fight set. I do recommend to always give it a triple fight set, otherwise it could go a little bit wrong. And you can simply level them up in Giants even though their whole set doesn't make any sense. Still running about like 30-ish second average depending on which unit you have in there. But just makes it a lot easier to have all of your units leveled up rather than going into scenarios wasting a bunch of energy. Now you do both still the farming, but you're also easily leveling your units. Just a small side tip. I've showed this before in the video, but just wanted to show that because, well, as you probably know, I've summoned a few of the new units, and then you also want to level those up. But while leveling those up, how do you actually do that effectively? Well, in here, and I already did like these 2 and like 3, 4, 5 more others as well. So I just selected a whole bunch of units, which I'm going to go through and going to be leveling all of those in there. Very simple. But let's actually get into the actual part of the video. Water Inosuke as the arena speed lead. And we do always in generally say like, okay, speed lead, this is going to be the super interesting, really good unit. Is he going to be though? Because he does have a somewhat of an interesting kit, but also somewhat of a weird kit. And the weird part actually comes from, yes, he does have an AoE strip. It is kind of, people were saying like, oh, that's like Tiana. Yes and no. And for the following reason. So I'm not entirely sure if you want to use this in RTA, because in the end, you're not really using Tiana in RTA neither. But let's talk about arena offense. So it's a speed lead with a strip. So we have a speed lead plus a strip. So what could we do with that is actually the very typical standard team that I've been talking about a lot of times already. And that is Asher, Galleon plus a nuker. In this case, I use Grogan because that's the only thing that I have ruined up that is actually a proper nuker. So let's just go for that. Let's see how that works out. I threw a triple fight set on him with a little bit of speed. Sure, the accuracy might be a little bit higher, because you do have an armor break, only skill 2, and it goes up to 100% if you have max skills, which I don't have on it yet. Plus, it cannot be landed as a glance. Skill 1 is just a stun, goes up to 50%. But this kind of team would work. However, there's a few issues, however, where a other unit might be more interesting. But let's see how this goes. Well, in the first case, there's nothing to strip right now in the first place. So, yeah, okay, we got rid of the shield. So we got that going. Also, since there's no glance, we can just simply go in over here. A little bit of chip damage, which also might help against the Byuncho passive. So the lower the HP of the Byuncho is, the more damage you can actually properly do on it. Also, very randomly enough, I did miss the armor break on the Byuncho that I already pre-armor broke in here. Which, normally, that guess is not really easy to make. And then from there, you can just go for a simple cleanup and clean up the whole thing. However, is the Inosuke a best in slot for that reason? Because cleanup on the skill 1 and the skill 2, sure, he does get an armor break later, but this team you could already do with a very familiar unit, and that very familiar unit would simply be a Chiwu. In the case of a Heigang, actually, this will not work as well. Sure, it will work better than a Chiwu, because your Chiwu will actually give glancing, and there's also give the cleanse towards the Heigang and give the push up of the attack bar. In this case, it's just the strip. So he's only going to get, what, the 25 part. Is that the 20? No, it's just the 20 and the 20. So he's going to get 120 part instead of 220 parts. However, where Tiana is stronger than this technically is because the Tiana boosts herself as well. And therefore, your overboost higher than the Heigang value is. But were we to say, like, okay, let's say that we can outspeed this kind of team, maybe the 4 extra lead would help a little bit more. But in the end, going for a simple Chiwu over here might be better, and that is by the simple fact that you have a little bit of chance of pushback. The skill does more than just a rotation into your own skills and then potentially just going for an armor break, which is kind of the weird thing about the kit. Why would you take a second turn to then only have a single target armor break or a chance to stun? It doesn't really make too much sense to me. I'm not 100% sure what's the idea behind this. Plus, in the case of a Camilla, a Chiwu is a good tank that your Camilla doesn't start focusing your main damage dealer, in this case, the Grogan. So it's also a little bit of like a lightning rod, which makes sense. Like, okay, the water units that are the most difficult to kill, this thing wasn't hitting like all that hard on the Grogan, which would have been the issue. Sure, you could maybe give the argument that a water Inosuke might help better with the cleanup itself of dealing extra damage. But in the end, they kind of do the same thing. So then the question, where is the water Inosuke better? With having that set placed back, it might be actually stronger against the more, because against the more, the Chiwu hits the more, and therefore the more will take a turn. In this case, with an Inosuke, that's not the case. Only issue is, however, if you do this skill, normally you would have a chance to also push back the Triton. In this case, we cannot see what's moving next, but I'm pretty sure maybe the Galleon moves, but then the Triton will probably move. Could try to give it a stun right now, was resisted, didn't work out, and then the Triton still moves, because you don't have that much attack bar going on. Sure, if you would actually have like a proper amount of speed on the next unit, then it would actually work. Let's say you put a Leia over there. Leia's in generally a lot faster. Then it does actually work. Leia in this case would probably do a little bit better. Or if I had a Grogan that was fully speed tuned, then I didn't have to go for the Seki resistance. But you get the point. So in this case, Inosuke is better against the Moor. But how often do we see a Moor on defense? Well, apparently here twice in a row, but that is kind of it. You don't see that all too much. But for these scenarios, it is actually a best in slot. But then the next thing might be, let's say that your Triton is super slow or you're actually properly tuned. You could land that armor break somewhere. Or you could miss the strip. That's also one of the big parts. Tiana is a 100% rate of actually landing her skill 3, where this unit is not. So you do have a little bit of downside with that as well. Sure, we do have that preemptive armor break already. But in this case, the armor break would have landed from the Galleon nevertheless. And we do too little damage and we don't even kill anything. Because of mainly the glancing part. But sure, can happen, can happen. That's also definitely a part that can happen. But yeah, then the big question is like, okay, it's better against the Moor, but is it worth enough where you're actually going to be full ruining a Inosuke for arena offense where you want to have this? Or could you go for a different kind of style where the armor break actually becomes more interesting and that you only need that one armor break and therefore not a second armor breaker, and therefore you can, for example, put another speed buffer or a different kind of attack buffer in there and then work your way around that way? Well, I do have an answer for that, but let me just first clear up this thing real quick. Yeah, the skill 1 is not doing that much damage. To be honest, I also don't have that much of a damage set on the unit now whatsoever, so that's not really helping as well. Does have the random amount of stuns. That does help a little bit. Can we kill that? Nope, doesn't do any damage. Well, neither of these two have any damage in their kit right now. Yay! Killing things. And then we get solo by more. Good. Probably ain't going to happen, but we could get. I should have put additional damage artifacts on these things. Can we stun this? Nice, stuns. I like that, I like that. Must say the stun and then an armor break setup. Resisted, too bad. With that armor break setup, we would have probably killed on that massacre, but we can also rotate turns, which does give you cycling to get your skill 2 more often, which might actually make you more of a siege unit of just randomly AoE stripping. This skill is also never a glancing hit, so it's not necessarily attribute advantage. If it was attribute advantage, it would do AoE armor break at random. That is, in this case, not the case because it's also it's just a simple no glance mechanic. So if it was an attribute advantage mechanic, it would have been actually pretty good on defense to have just that mechanic in the first place. But as I mentioned, where would it be a best in slot if I just need only his armor break? Well, you probably already know the idea. And that is if we were to use a Pungbeak. Let's say a Pungbeak Dove or so. So let's give this Pungbeak a casual set that I normally have on something like my Lucian. And then we go for this team. To be honest, I'm not sure if it's fully in tune. I did put triple fight on this with a bunch of speed increasing effects as well. I am probably going to get outsped by that Celia, and then we're going to fight a new team, but let's just see how this would work. Okay, it's pretty slow, so then it would work. So in this case, we could go for the AoE strip, and then after the AoE strip, we can actually hit the target that's probably lowest on HP. And yeah, you would have to max skill it to actually activate it to 100%. So in that case, it is a fail. God damn it. Let's see if that works better the second way around. Once again, going for the skill 3, stripping half of it. That could also be an issue, but yep, armor break in there. Then we can buff this up. And then we're going to go for massive damage. 91k. Not bad. That's actually a lot of damage. Wow, no, not bad at all. Yeah, and then we go for the cleanup over here because apparently that thing still does like to survive 91ks that spread out to the rest. It is, in this case, actually a decent tank towards this unit, I guess, towards the Byunchul, so that helps out a little bit in the case of not a Camilla, but a Byunchul, maybe. So it can not focus the Pungbeak in this case, but this. However, there's one big issue with this. As you saw in the first try, I missed the armor break. Sure, if you make that thing 100%, it's still not a guaranteed land of an armor break. And that is kind of the issue that I'm walking into. If this was a guaranteed land of the armor break, because it goes up to 100% if you fully skill it up. Can we actually see the skill ups over here? Why is Contour still not properly showing the skill ups everywhere? And I still have to go somewhere to actually click on the thing to then here show the skill ups. Okay. It goes up by 20%. But then it still could be resisted. If this was a guaranteed land of the armor break, this team would actually be insanely good. And I legitimately think that this team has a lot of potential to actually be really good. But let me tell you that this team is not as unique as you might think it to be unique. Because you could already run that team. And let me tell you that you can even run it with already a better lead. Because we're talking about strip and armor break on a single target. Vanessa already does that. Sure, in this case, Vanessa doesn't have an Ack Awakening and therefore has a bit more accuracy. But technically, it's a 100% land on the activation itself and then still has the resistance check. So if we were to run this, it would actually be exactly the same. And I'm not sure with the speed buff. Okay, with the speed buff, it's still fine-tuned. We go for this, and it's exactly the same as what we just did before. Which, in the end, does it become a best in slot for that? Actually, no. It would become a best in slot if he were, like, technically has a slight higher chance of landing the armor break because it's not a double resistance check. It's a resistance check AoE on all 4 units for the strip. And then afterwards, you of course going to armor break the unit that is stripped before. Whereas on the Vanessa, you have to choose one that you're going to strip and going to armor break, so it's a double check in one. So technically has slight better odds to make this team work. But it is still a decent odd where it could miss. And if it misses, yeah, then you're not going to be as happy with it, of course. So what would this unit need as a buff to be best in slot for this? Well, that's simply a guaranteed land on the skill 2 for that armor break. And to be honest, I don't think he would be that OP. Neither would the whole family be that OP if he guaranteed lands the armor break. Let me actually check who else has these skill 2 similar as his. Maybe the light one has. Okay, the light one has, which might be the best of the whole family. But this whole family looks a little bit weak, where I would say skill 1 of just stunning 50%. It's a decent stun for skill 1, but still 50-50. The S2 is, in most cases, not that dominant. And yeah, I think that's kind of the thing for the whole family. And that is the family that is the arena lead. So besides having the arena lead of 28 speed, which is definitely very nice, the whole kit itself is not that impressive. So I think that he is okay-ish. He definitely has the 104 base, which is pretty decent. Base stats are a little bit all over the place for a unit that also, like, he's full on a support unit, which are all of them supports, or is he the only support? He's the only support. Okay. Fair, I guess. Kind of makes sense for his kit. So yeah, he's not really going to be a main damage dealer. He's going to be a main stripper and a single target armor breaker. But there's units that do that better, and there's units that do that in one try. And the additional turn that he gives to himself feels really weird because he can only single target armor break. If he were to be able to AoE armor break, or at least guaranteed armor break, or do something with it specific, then it would be really nice. Now it's kind of just weird. So it was one of those, especially when we always see is like, yo, speed lead, gotta be insane, gotta be insane. Well, we do have another unit that also had speed lead and wasn't that insane at the start. Currently, he is still decent. He's pretty good, but he's also, I think it's actually a pretty legit unit. I think he's actually very, very legit. Big issue is that people are just simply over spamming him and therefore he's not that great, but he also has the 28 lead. So I would say definitely one balance patch away from being good, but absolutely has its potential to be very insane. So yeah, that's my video for today, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. If you have any questions about any of the Demon Slayer units or that you really would like me to make a video on, let me know that in the comments and hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.